Hello everybody, this is Vesa Ivanen from Microsoft, and in this video I'm going to focus on Copilot on SharePoint. This is one of those super exciting capabilities where we actually enable you to operate against the Microsoft 365, in this case with SharePoint, directly using your natural language. So you can actually ask operations, create things, modify settings, and all of that using just a natural language without the need of understanding where to actually apply this configuration, or without the need of necessarily writing scripts or code to change the operations within a SharePoint site. So let's jump right into the demo and have a look on what we can do with Copilot in SharePoint.
Okay, so let's walk through some of the features from a demonstration perspective around the Copilot in SharePoint. And first of all, when we get started on Copilot in SharePoint, when you enable that, or if it's enabled for you, you will see actually this Copilot button hovering around, showcasing different AI actions. So when I click that one, it's available in the lower corner. And again, if I click that one, it will actually show me contextual based actions dependent on where I actually am. So I will see different actions in the pages, different actions in news, different actions in lists and libraries, and so on. And those will be evolving in the future. And of course, you can always open up the chat and have a discussion with the AI to start doing similar kind of operations directly within the chat UX. One thing to call out here, this icon here, we've been testing a few different scenarios and a few different icons on the button. I guess we are now heading towards using the Copilot icon there. So within this demo environment, we're still using the older version of that icon. So coming back on that contextual experience here, if I, for example, go now to the news article, so meet our team is a news article, and I open up that one because it is a news article. I will actually see a different set of things here. For example, listen to an audio overview, which is one of the actions directly within that AI quick launch function. So that is really, really cool. Part of all of these are obviously part of the Copilot in AI scenarios, so that contextual experience. So what else can we do with Copilot in AI? Well, there's a lot of key features and capabilities what we can do just by having a natural native language discussion with AI without really understanding how do we do all of the settings and configurations on items and all of the operations from a click-through perspective. So rather than using mouse with the click-through, we can actually tell AI to perform required actions based on our business requirement or based on the user requests. So in this case, we are actually storing a product inventory in this list. We can say different kind of products about Sava product inventory here, and we have the AI already to chat window open, and we can actually have a discussion with the AI using the natural language to do operations. So in this case, zoom in a bit, we are basically adding a text on add athletic raincoat, available color is black, sizes in a stock, color code in the stock columns. And I'll come back on that one, what it means in practice after clicking things. So let's actually do the operation, request the AI actually perform things. It starts working on it. It figures out the natural language towards the operations which are supported behind the scenes. And now it's actually asking me that, is it okay for me to actually create the item? Depending on operation, it will ask you the confirmation if needed. And again, some operation will ask the confirmation, some operation, it will just execute the things. It comes back on, are we creating new things? Are we configuring? What are we actually doing? So in this case, let's actually create the item, and then let me zoom out a bit. It's now thinking on doing that. Now on the left corner, we saw the item to get created. We actually can see it in here. That was the new item get created. And more importantly, we actually also asked it to do color coding on the in stock. So we actually made two different operations at the one go just by using the natural language. So we requested it to add a new item on the list with the specific values, and then we actually configured the list using natural language as well. So me, whereas I have the right permissions, because the AI is using my permission, who's actually using the tool, if I have the right permission, I can of course configure this list view, and in this case it did apply JSON level definitions behind the scenes to the list. So it actually, from an end user perspective, it will look a bit more pretty. But again, I didn't have to understand how to do that. I didn't have to understand the JSON. I didn't have to understand where should I actually click on which menu to actually make those configurations happen. I was just using natural language and telling the Copilot in SharePoint to act on behalf of me based on my request. And that's exactly what happened here. The column has been configured based on the business requirements. And of course, I could say, hey, don't use the in-stock color as a light green, put it in dark green, and a text and a font, for example, in white. And it would perform that on behalf of me without actually me understanding how would I do it in real world using the JSON definition. And that's really the beauty of Copilot in SharePoint. So you can, again, use just your natural language for not only to create items, manipulate items, but also configurations within a site, which is beautiful stuff as well. Now, it doesn't end here. Let's actually go back on the front page and do one more thing, a bit more complicated scenario. So in here, we can actually ask the SharePoint, a Copilot in SharePoint, to actually create us a document library called deal Contextual in this site. Don't check existing libraries, it doesn't exist yet. Add folders legal, copy all templates from this location to a new library. Don't put them on any of the folders. So we're kind of giving a prompt, system prompt for the Copilot in SharePoint to perform the operation on behalf of us. So we don't have to go and create a library, create the folders and all of that stuff, which is pretty cool. I can do that in here. Now, technically, writing a complex prompt, that does take actually quite a long time. So repeating that prompt then multiple times day after day or multiple times in a consistent way, not really fun, definitely not fun. So what you actually want to do is after you have validated the prompt and the operation and the business process in the natural language, we can then take that prompt and the operation and tell the Copilot in SharePoint to save that as a skill. So it's a repeatable process, repeatable prompt, repeatable functions and actions, what the AI will then operate whenever the user is asking that to happen. So let's actually do that. So we make sure that we get consistent results next time, and the other colleagues who are using this site don't have to remember exactly the prompt and folder names and all of that stuff, because that would be really, really complicated. So let's do that. Let's actually tell the AI on SharePoint, let me zoom in a bit here, to save this as a skill. So we're saying save this as a skill, deal name, and make a new deal room setup like this one, what we just did. So now the Copilot in SharePoint is aware what we just were operating. It will go to the memory of the operation and outcome, and it will then save that as a skill. What does that mean? Well, it means that we can actually then replay that prompt and operation multiple times. So in this case, we have created a prompt here called setup deal room. And basically, here's the instructions which the Copilot in SharePoint took from the prompt, which I just applied on the SharePoint side, but now it's in a instructional format for itself to apply exactly the same end result as we got previously. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so how do we actually use this? Well, we actually go to the prompt and we say, first of all, here's, I completely forgot about it. So reading helps. Here's what I would create. So it is basically just confirming, are we fine with that? Here's what we are intended to actually create it. And then the Copilot is asking, Copilot in SharePoint is asking, okay, so do we want to tweak any of these things? Or are we okay with this skill? And what we're doing here is that we're confirming. We could modify that. We could say, oh, actually, we want to have additional settings, or I want to actually the legal to be a different color. We could adjust the prompt just by using, again, a natural language. In our case, we're just going to confirm, yeah, that's exactly what we want you to do, and save as a skill, as a reusable asset, reusable action, set of actions, which other ones within the site can also use, which is really, really cool. Okay, so now what we're actually saying here, skill saved. For now, just say something like set up a deal room for Fabrican, and I'll run it through for whole process. Well, that is pretty interesting. So let's actually do that. So let's write here, make a deal room for Fabrican. Let's execute that, and let's see what actually happens. So now I didn't need to remember what was the original prompt or the operations which I'm needed to do, and I will get a consistent end result whenever a deal room is being requested. So that will make sure that everybody who's using the site, who has the right creation permissions and owner permissions and editing permissions, of course, all of the permissions still apply, they can use the same skill to create these rooms as much as possible so that they're good on, we get a consistent end result. So now we are here within the Fabricam deal site, we got exactly the same end result just seconds ago. Everything is created, and we were actually moved to the library as well. Again, starting point for everybody who's using then the site, and since it's a skill, it will be applied exactly like the instructions what we have created as we created things. I'll go back on that one in a second. Now, the beauty of this one is the fact that then you can actually create consistent looking deal rooms as a starting point for any of the customers, any of the partners you're working with, and you will get exactly the same end result. Of course, after that, the content and everything else gets modified. You can have additional files, folders, all of that. You can adjust that. But it's a consistent look and feel and starting point for the structure which you have defined. And every single user who has the needed permission can use the skill within the site, which is really, really cool. Okay, that's not all. So that's kind of the SharePoint skills, the capabilities, how it actually works with the Copilot in SharePoint. Awesome, brilliant stuff. But that is not all. So let's actually go back on home. What else can we do with Copilot in SharePoint? Well, there's a lot of interesting things what we're going to do related on generative AI. So because AI is incredibly smart, it understands the context of the site, it understands the information within the site, and it also understands technology. We can actually ask it to do complex operations on behalf of us. So let me actually start the chat. Let me go here, ask a question, and paste in a bit more simplified thing. But what we're saying here is create a report that recaps all brand deals for this fiscal year to date. Pretty simple prompt. So, but in my case, I actually remember and I know that we are actually storing all of the deals within this fiscal within the site. So now, as we execute this, let me actually start the execution. The SharePoint is detecting all of the deals on the location in this site, and it's able to find a deal info list that tracks the deals. Then it actually looks into that list, looks to the information within the list, pulls down the data, and then transforms that data to a understandable format and a report which we can actually access. So here we go. What just happened? Well, it actually created a report, 8-slide deck, save the reports library. The report is an 8-slide deck, 10 deals, here's what's inside. And this is kind of the highlight of things, which is all good, text format. But what it actually did on behalf of us, it generated us an HTML report just a few minutes ago, as we can see from here. There's the summary, and if I open up this one, we actually generated easily accessible HTML report, which is easily usable. I can see the information. We could modify, of course, the prompt to be specific and ask certain colors and branding and all of that stuff to be available on this report as well. So the information within the list is now transformed to be a much more approachable from an end user perspective to understand what that information means, which is pretty, very cool. Again, we're using the generative AI together with Copilot in a SharePoint to generate these things on fly, which is pretty beautiful, beautiful stuff. Okay, one more thing. Let's go back on talk about a bit about the skills. We talked about the skills. Of course, all of the things you can mix and match and combine HTML generation together with skills. That's one operation could be blah, 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 blah. Really, really excellent stuff. But what are those skills then? So let me go to the site contents of the site. And here we have agent assets folder. This is something which is getting created when you create a skill. So let's go to the agent asset folder. Let's go to the skills folder. And here is the deal room, which we just created. If I go there, I can actually see that the skill itself is an MD file. So here we have the skill MD. So it's an MD file using natural language in Markdown format, which I can modify in a Markdown format, and I can of course have a look on the preview on the right side as well. But you, me, anybody who has the right permissions within the site, the configure and editing permissions, we can modify the skills just by modifying the file content. So if we want to include additional steps, additional folders, additional templates, whatever, or something is wrong within the thing, we can directly modify the skill here, or of course you can always use the chat. So you can ask the Copilot in SharePoint to modify the skill on behalf of you as well. Definitely an option. But really, really powerful way of storing, again, the operations and actions which you are requesting the SharePoint to do in the natural language format without you needing to write any scripts or code or low code, no code operation. You just tell the Copilot, these are the operations, this is my expected outcome. store that as a complex prompt, because technically it's a prompt, but we don't need to talk about the complexity of prompts. Let's call it a skill. So which we will be then applying to the AI, and the AI is then following the instructions within the skill and creating the operations or performing the operation on behalf of the user that is being requested. And that is a really, really, really powerful capability. We have open source skills available already. We are collecting open source skills, and there will be out of the box skills. There's a lot of skills available, which will be streamlining the operations in SharePoint for sure.
Okay, that was really cool. So we first used the Copilot in SharePoint to adjust things and create operations. We also saved the same operations as a SharePoint skill. So you can actually reapply the same operation as a repeatable process. But more importantly, as you saw in the end of the video, we are actually saving those instructions in the natural language format. So you can actually go and modify them just by typing or changing the MD file, which we showed you in the video as well. So the skill is kind of a reapplyable or stored prompt, which you can adjust based on your own preference. You can, by the way, also use the Copilot to do that. So if there's something in a skill which you don't like, you can actually say for Copilot that, hey, let's adjust these things. I want it to do X and Y and Z rather than the previously done operations. So please take advantage of the awesome AI capabilities. Give us feedback. We are creating all of these capabilities for you, and let's stay in touch. Cheers. Bye-bye.